I've said this before, and I decided, I guess, back in 1996, while still a student at Tennessee, that I found it best if I'm not going to have to cover politics, if I'm not going to have to go out and cover just terrible things such as car wrecks and stuff, and I'm not going to be a part of the news, there's no purpose of me sharing my politics with you. Now, people like Clay Travis would disagree with me, and that's fine. He's doing all right for himself. Good for you. And I'm not going to do that now. So this really has no bearing on whether or not I'm left, right, liberal, conservative, whatever I may be, because I certainly don't want to get into that. But Georgia will not visit the White House. And they have said that, unfortunately, the date suggested is not feasible given the student athlete calendar and time of the year. However, we are appreciative of the invitation and look forward to other opportunities for Georgia teams moving forward. What do you make of that? Just in and of itself, Caleb, I want you to begin.
I'm going to be honest. And this has nothing to do with how I feel of the job he is doing politically whatsoever. I put this on the White House more than Georgia. Most White House invites. Now we have one commenter saying that June trips aren't unheard of. Clemson did it in 2017, and that's true. But the vast majority of White House invites are in March and April for college football teams. You can go back and look at it. It's always in the March to April, the range. Heck, Clemson in 2019 went in January, right after they won it. They want those things done earlier, or either right before or right after spring practice. It is right in the thick of the summer and summer workouts. And I think it's the day after, I believe, the UConn men's and LSU women's basketball teams are set to visit the White House. For some reason, the Biden White House decided to cram all these invites in the middle of June. And look, that's a really difficult time in football. Particularly, let's talk about this, Dave. People who want to bring up Clemson doing it in 2017. The recruiting calendar is different nowadays. And let's be honest, in June, you're working round the clock recruiting, are you not, if you're a coach?
You are, yes.
And summer workouts have begun. I think this has everything to do with the calendar. I can't believe I usually don't take things people say at face value. I always think there's a nefarious motive or a lie here. I think in this case, it's a thing at face value. Just to point it out, I don't think it's a political thing for Georgia to reject it. One, Georgia's representing a state that did vote for Joe Biden in 2020. And I don't think any of their players, let's be honest, most college athletes don't care about politics at all. And so I don't think it's about a feeling of them. So I think the Biden White House made a real big mistake scheduling it on June 12th.
Okay. Again, I don't want to get into politics, whether it's Trump or Biden or whoever it might be. Okay. But I am going to disagree with you on one thing. And I'm going to disagree with the statement that Georgia threw out there. This is a bunch of bull. Okay. They could make it happen if they wanted it to happen. They could put together, if Stetson Bennett doesn't want to go because he's got off-season workouts and he went there last year, I totally get that. And if some other guys don't want to go, I get that. But you could put together a contingent to go. I believe firmly that you owe this to our nation. I believe this is a big part of it, to go, at least as an institution. And Caleb, you talk about recruiting and all that, sure. But is there any better recruiting than being at the White House and the national coverage you would get? And we're hopping on private planes, guys, and going in and out. It's not even a full day for them to visit the White House. I find it quite frankly disgusting that any team turns down the White House. And if an individual has strong convictions about a president, then fine, that individual doesn't have to go, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. However, if you are an institution that is state funded, and you basically thumb your nose because of the timing, forget the politics. I don't care if it's Abraham Lincoln there. I think it's disappointing. And Travis posted on the board. Kirby probably asked the team, and they said they didn't want to go. This makes twice they haven't gone. Did they not go last year as well?
There was still COVID last year. So they had COVID restrictions on White House visits last year.
Okay. Well, so that to me is even more disappointing because it's an opportunity to go. If he asked the players and they didn't want to go, well, I mean, that's fine if that's the way you want to do it. But does he poll the players whether or not they're going to go for it on key fourth downs? Does he poll the players about the game plan on an upcoming Saturday? Asking players, I mean, if that's the case, I mean, you don't know what you're going to get out of the players, for goodness sake.
Also, okay, I have to say this. The reason I have a hard time the players said, no, we don't want to go. Okay. Let's talk about a large percentage of these players' demographics. Their moms are the reason Georgia voted for Joe Biden. That's Joe Biden's key demographic. We know what I'm talking about here, guys. There's no way their moms would have allowed them to say no to that. Let's just be honest, okay?
I mean, who would say no to go to the White House? I mean, that to me is. I mean, I've been fortunate enough, thanks to Heath Schuler, I've toured the Senate and been able to do all of that, Capitol Hill, but I didn't get to go to the White House. I'd love to go to the White House. I've heard it's actually kind of a dump, falling apart, but I would love to go to the White House. And I mean, short of some crazy dictator who took away any ability to have a democracy or a free market society, I'm going to the White House. I don't care who the president is. There's been presidents I didn't like, but I'm going to the White House, Caleb. And I think for Georgia in particular to not at least cobble together 6 team leaders or something and take a trip up there, I can't help but think it's somewhat political. I mean, I know you said it isn't, and you know more about politics than I do. I'll stay in my lane on this, but I mean, why can't you get a private plane to go? And again, it's like the people that used to not like the Lady Vols because they didn't like women's athletics and the women's team was better than the guys. I'm like, listen, that is a 3-hour television commercial in the Final Four that millions of people are watching. So this would be not as big, but it would be covered by national media. And it certainly would be covered big time in the Atlanta area. It helps in recruiting. I just think it's done with a capital D.
I will say from a recruiting perspective, I actually am coming around to your side that it may hurt. I mean, because I think, look, this gives a vibe of where Kirby Smart lands politically, fair or not. And that probably doesn't jive with a lot of people he's trying to recruit. I'm just going to be honest, guys.
Okay. Do you think you think it may be political? We are speculating.
I don't know. I actually don't think it is political. I think it may have been a mistake because it gives off the vibe that Kirby Smart leans a certain way politically. And you don't ever, you know this, you don't ever usually want to give off that vibe. And so it's kind of one of those things where it's tricky. The most famous wading into politics, I kind of distinctly remember, Mike Leach waded into politics a lot, but Mike Leach was never at a school where he needed to recruit the top talent, obviously. And Steve Spurrier, I remember when Steve Spurrier went on a rant about the Confederate flag at College Game Day?
I do not remember that, but
it was his second year at South Carolina, and I think it was South Carolina hosted Tennessee for College Game Day, and Spurrier went on a rant about the Confederate flag being shown in the background for College Game Day, and he said it was embarrassing for the state and the university. I think that had a lot to do with there are certain kids that he's trying to recruit at South Carolina that probably feel a certain way about the Confederate flag, whether or not you agree with it.
That was probably premeditated and orchestrated, and he wanted to gain something out of this. I don't think there's anything to gain. I would be incredibly disappointed if Kirby Smart or the athletic director had political issues with Joe Biden or any other president, and they decided not to go on the kids' behalf. I mean, listen, I know a lot of former players, guys. I mean, I know a lot of former players that essentially the greatest part of their life is done when that last college game is over. They're not going to have another opportunity to do something like go to the White House. And to me, it's really disappointing. I'm sure there's some guys that wanted to go. You know what I think it is? Again, speculating. I think it's back to what you said. It is recruiting. And Kirby Smart thinks that the recruiting calendar is just that important. What, it was June the 12th, right?
Yeah, June the 12th.
Okay, what day of the week does that fall on? If you can look that up for me, because that's what I would be curious about. And if it comes down to recruiting over going to the White House, I think you're being short-sighted. I think that's crazy. I mean, Georgia is not a national brand like Southern California or Notre Dame or even a Texas. It's close, but you make yourself into a national brand when you win a couple of back-to-back titles. You make yourself a national brand when you get that type of exposure. So he's got
Monday, for the record.
It's on a Monday?
Yeah, it's on a Monday.
Well, I mean, if it was on a Saturday during one of their big recruiting camps, maybe, but this to me is, I think it's disrespectful to America. I'll be real honest, but I think Georgia has absolutely thumbed their nose at the United States of America. You could at least cobble together a dozen players, and Kirby Smart could fly up there. It's literally going to be like a 6-hour trip. And it's during a quiet period in recruiting. Thank you, Elias.
Is there such thing as a quiet period in the summer in recruiting?
No, not really, but there's such a thing as a cell phone. So I mean, it's not like he's going off to the North Pole to play with penguins.
Right. No, I get what you're saying. I see what you're saying. And I mean, I think, look, overall, from a strictly sports standpoint, I think this actually hurts him in recruiting more than it helps. I'm with you on that. I think this backfires in multiple ways, quite honestly. Takes away a certain level of exposure, and it gives off a vibe of where you lean politically. Fair or not, that you don't like giving off that vibe because that can hurt you recruiting. I think most coaches, we're never going to learn where Josh Heupel stands politically, are we? We're never going to even get a hint of where he stands. He's not going to ever let us know because he wants to recruit everybody. And so he's never going to let us know that.
Yeah, I just it was really disappointing. If Tennessee did that, I would be incredibly disappointed. And I think the SEC should have applied a little bit of pressure to get them to go. I'm not a big fan of somebody looking over somebody's shoulder, but that to me is a really big deal and really disappointing. And again, I think of the kids. A lot of these kids are never going to have this type of opportunity again. Like I said, I was fortunate enough to know Heath Schuler, so I got a complete tour. I got like a crazy good tour, and yeah, it was awesome. And my kids may never get that opportunity again, but they were with me and they took the tour. And to say, if I'd have said no because I don't like Heath's politics or I don't like the current president's politics, they would have missed out on that. And that to me is very, very unfortunate. I guarantee you there are some players on that team, Caleb, that are like, darn it, man, that'd be really cool.
Oh, there are plenty. I think there's a lot of players on that team that may have wanted to go. So, and I mean, to give an example, Philip Fulmer, based on some things I know and given where he's from, I'm sure he probably leans to the right politically, which is fine.
I think most people that are worth millions do lean to the right.
Exactly.
Okay.
But that didn't stop him from welcoming Al Gore into the locker room when Tennessee won the national title, even though Al Gore was probably on the other side of him politically. And, I'm sure
Al Gore invented internet databases.
Yes, exactly. And on the other side,
how could you recruit without Al Gore inventing the internet? You could.
Exactly. And then on the other side, I've heard stories that I think Nick Saban actually does lean to the left politically. Doesn't stop him from visiting the Trump White House, or he visited the Bush White House in 2005. So I get your point. It was, for both of them, it didn't matter the partisan leanings of the administration at the time. By the way, I don't have any confirmation on either of those things, but there's circumstantial things that lead me to believe Philip Fulmer leans right, Nick Saban leans left. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fine. But still, I don't care if it's Ross Perot. I mean, who can forget that? Ross
He united the country.
What's that?
I said he might have united the country finally.
Yeah, I I don't care who it is. I don't care. I mean, how crazy you may think the person is. I know a lot of people think that Donald Trump's crazy. I know a lot of people think that Joe Biden's crazy, and I'm not real crazy about the run we've had of presidents lately on both sides. But if they call me, I almost feel like it's a civic duty. Is that too strong?
No, I got you. I mean, I understand. I totally understand the sentiment on that.
I mean, if I were to do something great in my life, and the White House called me and said, we would like for you to bring your family and your coworkers at Off the Hook Sports because you have changed the face of broadcasting. We're going to go. And I'll be darn mad at you if you don't go.
No,
I mean,
I
I'm not
agree.
going to press it. I'm not going to make it an issue, but.
No, I get it. I think remember this is the same. The Biden White House stuck their foot in their mouths when Jill Biden wanted to invite the losing team from the women's national championship game to the White House. Remember that? And Angel Reese kind of humiliated her. I think that was
agreed. That was a little silly.
Yeah. And so it was. I mean that was kind of one of those things that. Look,
what was the first team, Caleb, that did make it political? It's been during my lifetime where there was.
I don't remember teams. There were individuals who made it political. There was a hockey player. Okay, so the funny thing is Tom Brady skipped out on the Obama invite after going Bush 3 times, but that wasn't because he's conservative or liberal. That's because Obama apparently made a joke about Deflategate that Tom Brady took personal.
Well, and then Tom Brady is the type. He's one of the few that could call up and get a tour of the White House anytime he wanted it. So it's not like his kids would be missing out. Like these kids would be missing out. And
there was a hockey player from Alabama who said that during Obama's tenure, who said he wouldn't visit the White House because he has objections to spending policies in Washington, which was like.
I want to say Golden State after one of their championships.
Steph Curry. Yeah, that was Steph Curry said it. And then Kevin Durant said it. And then it was hilarious, but a few Golden State people were floating it. And then in typical Trump fashion, he's like, you guys don't want invitation rescinded. And he tweeted out invitation rescinded.
Yeah, that's like when you say, I'm not going to the party that I wasn't invited to.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I don't want to go to your party. Or the other is
like Jada Pinkett saying she's boycotting the Oscars in 2017 when she wasn't invited.
Yes. Or the other one is, well, you're fired. No, I quit. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean,
that's what that was.
It doesn't work like that.